in the trenches of man's past decisions, where were all the guns pointed to? What are we shooting for? We must begin as a sense of species guide our world and to be a display to all other beings on this plane, especially animals, of the harmony that we can develop in our communication. Our individuality has brought many great aspects of the universe together, and that includes you and your friend. For humanity is not just a named phenomenon. Humanity was that moment in life when reality opened its wings and it began to fly. This self-awareness developed. We recognized ourselves in the mirror. The ape stood up on its legs. And so now we have people doing parkour. And so we wonder what is truly insane. You must allow yourself to be guided by the tranquility that is found in absence. You see, most of your life and most of your wealth and most of your abundance is being based on a sense of having things, and it's based on really how the game was being played by the animals who were trying to survive in the fittest way. So when survival of the fittest was happening, let us assume, we can begin to see that the psychology of the being was designed to have to be. And so there seemed to be an urge to keep on manifesting as if this was the aspect of the cosmos which things were gravitating in. As if this self-awareness, this consciousness was being gravitated, it was being attracted, and so it hit the surface of the earth and it began to walk. You see, we must have an ability to acknowledge ourselves as the most able human beings, but at the same time, all that the human being can confront. And what that means is there will come moments where there will be many projections of reality that will suggest that we have lived in a certain way. But you see, because evolution was going on and we are considering survival, because it's all based on a sense of havingness, the profundity and understanding will come in you having nothing. So you are learning from both those moments in life where you're given stuff, but there's also moments where stuff is taken from you. And so you realize this, but you also realize this in regards to ideology, and you see how nature has to play in how memory comes and goes. And it seems that in 1 minute, the profoundest idea was there, but suddenly it fades, but immediately it's back, and so this is your regular to-do list. You see, it's because nature is evolving, and because the universe is expanding, we must suggest that we are a dynamic phenomena, and a dynamic phenomena is always in such a peak state of experience that it has a choice of projection. That means the phenomena that we are is such a self-awareness that it has dissolved in its individuality. It has become all the projections of its individuality, and it has found one drop to simultaneously and self-reflectively be all the drops in the ocean. And so completion was now. There was only a drop, but there was also an ocean of experience within this drop. And so perhaps black holes do speak of certain aspects of man's mind. For if fractals were real, the mystic knew that the pupil in his eye was the galaxy which the being could begin to see that it could originate from. What that means is, once you begin to look at even this planet beyond the idea you have of it, you begin to work with the nature of life differently. You don't shape it too much, you flow with it. Do you know? And it's a very interesting phenomena, because if we are considering even 0.0001% that there's some placebo effect going on, we can see that history does not mean that it is the accuracy needed. History will just become his story. And so we will look at the his to a depth where there is no ideology that can touch the experiencer. You're untouched in the purity of simply how you exist. And so let this never be, in a sense, some teaching, but a mirror of life thrown at you by the voice of omniscience. Your moment is clear. Observe your clarity, and your flows shall open up. What that means is, Mr. Within has a very interesting suggestion. Many people really sit down, try to plan, and try to very linearly handle it. They're handling a sense of static self. But if you begin to take this dynamic consideration, if you simply allow yourself, you begin to see it's as if there's a river of ideas and flow. And if you just align your intentions, if you become sincere and very aware and existentially sensitive in your how the nature of your attention is present, your life is graceful and joyful. In how you know your being, you will see the omnipresence that you are. For beyond conception, there is such great experience that it's as if an aspect of consciousness has given individuality such a voice, but immediately when the individuality says that the collectivity is not here, it's as if the whole world is there to object. But as you become aware and realize the simultaneous capability you have of simply as the nature of a self-aware being, that you not just learn from your form, but the form of all the beings around you. You immediately elevate. You begin to realize there is something going on here, and it's called the phenomena of life. It's a big thing. It is not just your routine. It is not work. It is not stories where there are characters who can't find themselves. We're not here to be thinkers like people who have a sticker on their forehead but they don't realize the labels that act as eyes of freedom. Align yourself with your breath. What that means is if you were simply an existential point of attention, if you were just a view in your moment, your first briefing, your first update of what's going on in this reality is your breath. And so realize this is where your reception amplifies because your sense of certainty and knowing becomes transcendentally situated beyond an idea. So you trust your moment regardless of any fluctuation of idea. And so as you are present there, then the ideas are given full permission. What that means is if you allow yourself to honestly be, that means you do not try to be good or bad, because that meant you'd be dishonest on one side. As man elevates, he has been his own elevator, and the button has always been within. We take off our jackets, you will see it's a very beautiful phenomenon. Let's say you take any idea. Let's say if you take the idea of an apple, you would begin to see, if you were to focus on it and perhaps see the elegance in meditation, you would have such an attention to just one object that object will begin getting simultaneous meaning. That means you're not just looking at an apple, you're looking at every idea of an apple you have heard. Every idea, every symbol, every memory, every time, and all those are still fluctuating because sometimes you have been in states of movement and you've observed this image. They're all simultaneously present. There's an ocean of motion in regards to how abstraction is giving presence constantly to the moment. as you observe how all is present, you will see that if you go first to your subjectivity, if you just try to be that blind follower, you will see that you will even blindly follow yourself. But if you immediately give yourself a gift of clarity and open the world anew, you shall see that there is no boundary. There is no boundary aside from the choice that can keep a world that has boundary. The ability of consciousness is that that apple can become the apple in Newton's hand or in Eve's. Stories are allowed to live as much as they want, and they have free will and abstraction. Because there's a sense of intelligence, maybe not as intelligent as man, but there is a sense of intelligence to thought. And it is based on some level how a design is projected into this life form, but at the same time how the life suggested the design. And that's the profundity of how many mystics and many illiterate and illiterate beings who just suddenly they realized, they just had a moment. A very profound story was that I of course heard this from Sadhguru, which is he's a very realized person. He said, I believe he said that one day he goes to this vegetable store and he sees a very, very bright being standing there, as if he notices realized being, and it's as if he locks eye contact, and for a second, they begin laughing. It's as if they're both acknowledging the same thing. And so Sadhguru goes up and says, "Why are you here?" And the guy tells him the story of how he was in a hospital and he was confronting death every day. And so every day thinking about death suddenly made him realize the nature of how life was real. Many have told you be grateful for what you have, but you will see that if you are not conscious of even how you have that, you do not truly have it. And so happiness cannot be, in a sense, manifest if there is still a need for someone to be happy. Your self-awareness leads to the moment where clarity is present. This clarity can be beautifully void, it can be empty, it can be the absence, it can be the realization in how you thought you were something, but now you see that you were not. In how you thought you had a certain ability, but suddenly you went into a rough experience and you realize, oh gosh, you have this kind of ability. In this world, there's a dance of information, and it seems that as you become aware of it, you are not bound by it, you are freed by it. We thought the illusion was the trap. No, your freedom is now. Realize it. Gravitate towards the core of your truth and see that the truth of truth never needed words. It was directly experienced. It was absolute. It was the longing of the seeker of life. And blessings to the mystics and yogis who spoke even though they knew. For it's a very hard thing to speak about totality as a very individual part of it. But you can begin to see that in observing the individual, how you are made to observe collectivity. What that means is stress was your luxury of fabricating that based on how much creatively you could bash yourself in your subtler thought. Your freedom cannot be chained. It is untouched. It is present beyond a personality that could be weak or strong. For when life stands up for life, it has always stood. the same place. In the gift that is the appreciation of a sense of being beyond space and time, you will work with yourself, within yourself, as yourself, in the greatest potential of how the veil was cut and novelty was introduced between the known and the unknown. I hope this talk has served you. And I would really like to end off with some mantras, and these are some sounds where they're just sounds, and so be aware of them as sound and just allow yourself to be as comfortable as how your breath is. There will also be mantras for the pilots of consciousness. For the pilot's calling. Lead.